Hello, hello, hello. Leavers and believers. Welcome back to Leaving Hillsong. My name's Tanya and today we're going back to the UK for a bit of anarchy in the UK, and we're going to have a chat to Troy. Troy was not a Hillsong member, but his brother was. And it didn't take too long for Troy to start asking some serious questions. And I've always wondered, for every person there must be 3, 4, 5 people who wonder, what's going on in this place that my friend or colleague or sister is going to? And then, when things don't go well, what do? Troy first got in contact with me 12 years ago when this was all happening, and I've hunted for the messages, but I think I'm a little grateful that they're gone. So please settle in, kick back. I'm so happy that you're a part of this. I think a lot of people will find this a fascinating perspective. And here we are, off to the UK with Troy for this secret club. Part 1.
We're doing things a little bit differently today. We're not going in. Well, we're going into the heart of Hillsong, but we're going from a slightly different angle. We're going from the concerned relative angle, and we're going to the UK. I am so happy to welcome Troy to Leaving Hillsong. Hi, Troy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for your patience. Now, I was looking back in the messages. I saw that you sent a message in March of last year, and you said to me, do you remember talking to me 11 years ago? And I'm, that's like 3 lifetimes ago in this universe. So, I shudder to think what my responses would have been. But tell me what you remember. Tell me what was happening 11 years ago.
Yeah, sure. So 11 years ago, that's when I first, sort of came across Hillsong at the time. And I actually, around that time as well, came across your book. And I remember reading it and I thought, wow, it sort of opened up things for me in terms of knowing more about sort of the nature of Hillsong. And to be honest, getting in contact with you, I didn't think it would actually be possible,
Good old Facebook, though. I mean, what had prompted you to go looking it up, or was that just a coincidence?
I guess it's a bit of a coincidence. I was doing some general searches, and then I just came across your book, really. And then that's when I thought, oh, wow, there's an actual whole book on Hillsong, but it was a different Facebook account that I had back then. So, I mean, all the messages would be gone basically because of that. But I remember just, from what I remember talking to you, I think you were quiet, and I could be wrong, but I just remember, I think you were probably in a different stage of your life, obviously, because, it's 11 years ago. But yeah, I wish I could remember more of it, to be honest.
Well, I mean, was Peter involved at that time?
Possibly.
So you really didn't have anybody else that you knew, because, I mean, we'll talk about it, but Peter's your brother.
Yeah.
Involved, yeah? So when does that happen?
Oh, so yeah, it would have been around that time, actually, just because that's, his involvement is what made me look more into Hillsong. So
Yeah.
what it was for Peter was, nothing, there was nothing major going on in his life, shall I say, but he just came across a group of people, and at first, we didn't know that they were attached to Hillsong here in London. But eventually, I remember this one guy was just, becoming friendly with Peter, started talking to Peter. And then that's when this guy just said, hey, you should come down to our church. And then that's when he revealed
Wow.
also.
Mm.
So yeah,
And
yeah.
how old are you? How old's he and how old are you at this point?
So
Right.
come 35. So at the time, I would say I was about early 20s. So let's say sort of 23-ish maybe. And he's now 42. So he was
Okay.
probably
Older than
early 30s. Yeah, early 30s, maybe late 20s, possibly. So he's definitely in a different
yeah.
headspace when it comes to Hillsong now. But yeah, he was more, what's the word, impressionable. But I feel like it should have been the other way around because he's my older brother, you
Yeah.
know.
So I'm
Um,
wondering, do you kind of, when he joins this thing, do you kind of presume that it's all good because he's your older brother and he must know what he's doing? Or like, how does that work?
well, you would think so, but not necessarily. I think at first I was just kind of like, okay, because I didn't realize it was Hillsong. I didn't know anything about Hillsong to start off with. So
Mm.
really and truly, I thought it was just, like your small church, like, your small Baptist church or something like that. And I just thought it would be like a church that you would sort of see on the corner of the neighborhood somewhere.
Home and make some kind of announcement to everyone or anything like that? Or just a gradual?
No, not really. From what I remember, it was a gradual sort of like shift you know, into the church. And I think from what I remember, after a while, he was kind of, because I started getting a bit like suspicious the more I started hearing about it.
Like, how come? Like, what alarm bells are going to you?
I think it was just more of the way him and his friends at the time were talking about it. So it was a very much like, you should really come to this church. And I've been to a few churches in my time, and some of the other churches, they're a bit more humble and a bit more modest, if that makes sense. So
Um,
they're not as like, come to my church and it's amazing. Like other churches I've been to, they're kind of like, if you want to come, check it out, it's fine, but we're not forcing you to be here. Whereas with these people who were from Hillsong, they were a bit more like, come to the church, it's great, you'll love it. Really, just really, really bigging it up. And I guess maybe to a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with that in itself. But for me, it was just kind of the body language, the tone, that sort of thing. And I just
mhm.
felt a little bit, I don't know, there was something in me that didn't sit right with me. And it, maybe there's an element of it where it is my brother as well. And you're just sort of a bit automatically protective when they're trying to go into
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Uh, I mean, just tell me a little bit more about tone and body language. You're a
yeah,
social,
yeah,
well, we can't stay away from stuff.
yeah.
Tell me, how did you, I mean, looking back 11,
Yeah,
12, 13 years later, you, you look at that pushy and you'd be thinking a bit more clearly. You must
yeah,
know a bit more what you were thinking.
yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, in terms of tone and body language, I guess it was just more of it was almost like, the best way I can put it was almost like it was like a secret in a sense. Like it was like this secret club sort of thing. Like, come to my
Mm.
church, it's the best thing since, sliced bread type of thing. Come on down, sort of thing. And I remember we went on a night out, and some of them were there, and this one particular guy, I don't know what happened, but he sort of just handed him my brother over like this card, and I was a bit shocked because I was thinking like, do churches have like cards, sort of thing? Like, so
Right.
I was, with a bit, I think that was my first sort of,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem quite right. But it was like, handed him a card, and I didn't see the card itself, but all I know, something was handed over that was on a piece of paper. It looked like a card. And I guess that's where the information of like Hillsong, the address or whatever was on it, basically.
Okay.
So I just, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the first time I thought, okay, what's going on there? What I will also say as well, I think, there was an element for my brother in terms of women, you know,
Sure.
and I think there, not think, but I know there was a woman that he was really interested in at the time, who he decided that he was, that he was interested, he was going to get with her. And she was very heavily involved in the church. And I think part of that was a motivating factor for him as well. Yeah. So,
Reasonable. Yeah.
yeah,
Kind of the appeal, of course.
well, there you go. So there was that. And, for me, I was just still on the outside looking in, just really just thinking about, what's going on here. And my mother has always said to me that I've always been quite critical in my thinking. So I think there was a natural, there's always been a natural disposition for me to kind of just be like, I'm not going to take things as face value. Um, and I'm going to look into things before, someone around me that I care about sort of dives head first into it, or even myself. And the thing is, I'm aware enough to know that actually, what I'm saying right now may sound like I'm trying to control the situation, which I wasn't. My brother can make his own choices, but I felt it was my sort of duty, I guess, as his brother, to just give him information that he may not necessarily try and look up himself. So yeah.
Totally understand. I mean, as well as the card and stuff, like what else kind of sets off alarm bells? Like, how long is he involved for? Like, how does this progress and how serious does it all get?
I would say so. I'm gonna say for the best part of 3 years. It could have been a little less, but I would say
Okay.
3 years.
That's a chunk of time. Yep.
Yeah. What I would say as well, for me, it was the fact that it was, when I found out that it was in a theater. At the time, the church here, the Hillsong branch here, they would hire out this popular theater in London called the Dominion Theatre. So that for me was also a little bit of a weird thing. Obviously, I associate churches with these like old listed buildings, quite like modest buildings, where I was like, okay, this is in a theater that, shows different shows that are, I
Hmm.
guess, not church like, like biblical, like, they show different theater shows in there. And that, that's fine. They just needed a building to rent and, whatever. And I think after that, I just thought to myself, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna go one day just for myself, like just to see.
Okay.
And I went, and I was just absolutely amazed just by all the bright lights and the big, the big massive screen, and these like video packages that they were showing that were almost hypnotic in a sense,
Almost.
like,
Mhm.
what did you say? Almost.
Yeah, more than. And I should have asked you, Troy, earlier. Well, how had you two been brought up, like faith wise, religious wise?
Um, like, Christian, not any particular denomination. We were all like given Bibles from an early age, and it was just I would say, just your normal upbringing. Like my dad wasn't really a fan of churches in general. My mum doesn't mind the church, but she stopped going after a while because my dad wasn't really into church. And then, you grow up and then you get into your teenage years and then you start to sort of question things like about your own faith and your own religion. And that was for all of, you know, me and my siblings. We've over the years, we've come in and out of faith. I would say, like, for example, my brother Pete, and I think when he got into Hillsong, he was very much like, okay, I'm going to get myself a new Bible. I'm going to read the Bible every day. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do all of this, which is okay, fine. And then I don't want to fast forward too quickly, but obviously, once he realized that Hillsong wasn't for him, yeah, after that, like, I think his faith is still intact, but in terms of how often he reads the Bible and, like, I guess pray and stuff and all of that, I think it just calmed down afterwards. And I guess in terms of me and my faith, I've always been quite moderate and it's always been a private affair for me. Now and again, do I go to church? Yeah, I do. But I'm not like an everyday, what do you call it? Like a Bible basher type. type. It's very personal for me, basically.
And so that takes us back to the Bible bashers. So you went along, you're amazed by the bright lights and the high quality video passages that almost hypnotic. What do you do? What happened?
You know what? For me, it was just pure confusion. So, you're sort of looking around and you're looking at like everyone else, and everyone else is like, the whole closing of the eyes, really, really getting into it, raising the arms up in the air. And I'm not saying Hillsong's the only church that does that. There's other congregations that do, but I think it was in the context of high quality, bright lights, videos, whatever, but at the same time, no substance. So I was kind of thinking to myself, what is everyone connecting to here? What is the message that they're connecting to? And it was a lot of, once the singing and, the dancing and the clapping and everything was over, you're looking around and thinking, okay, something's going to happen here. We're going to hear like a really good sermon and stuff like that. But, this guy comes out, skinny jeans, nothing wrong with wearing skinny jeans, but, skinny jeans, leather jacket, that sort of thing. And he's just standing up there and he's just like, who's going to give their heart to Jesus? And especially if you're here for the first time. So I remember just thinking, you know what? I'm going to put my hand up anyway, even if I don't mean it. And that sounds wrong, but whatever. I put my hand up anyway. And this guy just turned up, like just came out of some corner of the church, came up to me and just gave me this like booklet, this like magazine that was it was very pristine. It was very well produced and stuff. And I just thought to myself, like, where is all of this money coming from? And that was my second sort of, I guess, alarm bells. Like, where's all this money coming from? How is all of this being funded? All of this is high quality. You've got a good quality band, good quality sound system, a big screen with these video packages that tell me nothing really. And just a huge congregation as well. And obviously I'm thinking, okay, tithing is a part of this. And it just made me think, how much are people actually giving to this church? And so how much of this money or whatever they're getting is being used for good or for the local community and so on and so forth, I guess all of that made me think, okay, I need to go away really and actually start looking at this church like more, thoroughly.
Mhm.
And at this time, I didn't even realize that this church was like in other parts of the world.
Okay.
I really didn't.
Okay. Well, because we think it's so Australian. You've put your hand up. What happens when you put your hand up?
What when I put my hand up to say that I accept Jesus into my heart?
Mm.
Yeah, like I said, it was just this. So this guy came up to me and just said, "Oh, it's really good that you're accepting Jesus into your heart." And I was given this booklet with um from what I remember in it, had selected verses
Yeah.
from the Bible. So it wasn't like the whole Bible, but it was very much like they almost like picked out what they wanted to pick out
Yeah,
and
yeah.
put
The
into this
salvation
booklet.
one.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that interested me as well, because what I noticed is I remember this particular service, and I don't know if this is the same in Australia, it might be, but there's this whole thing of like everyone goes to Starbucks afterwards, or after the service. People were like, saying like, how do you feel? Do you feel like different? Do you feel, and I was just like, no, I don't really. My brother was there and he didn't really say anything to me. I remember him saying to me, made a good choice. And I think he was just referring to me, like putting my hand up and, saying I set Jesus into my heart and so on and so forth. But while we were in Starbucks, it was interesting to hear some of the conversation between some of the members of the church. And what I remember is there was one guy, he had like a small little Bible, but it was only the New Testament. It wasn't the whole Bible in itself.
Mm.
And I thought, is this another type of Hillsong thing? Is it just that they accept the New Testament and they don't really accept or look at the Old Testament? And I thought, what is it about the New Testament that's really interesting to these people? In a sense, like, does it more fall in line with the whole ethos of like Hillsong being being a happy, clappy sort of prosperity church type thing? And that's another thing, actually. Now I'm looking around here, but I remember another time, because the times of like the services here, or at that time, I don't know if they've changed it now because it's been a while since I've been there, but they have 3 slots in the day. So it was like morning, afternoon, and an evening service, basically. And I remember that one time, I think I went to an evening service again, and this guy again came out, and the first thing he said, which it threw me back, was Jesus died so you can be rich.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay,
What?
I'm looking at my pockets and I'm thinking I'm still broke. But anyway, but I heard that statement and I thought to myself, is there more to that? I thought maybe this is a metaphor for something, or maybe there's more
Right. No.
explanation to this,
Mhm.
but there wasn't. It was just simple as
Um,
Jesus died so you can be rich. And I just thought, is anyone in this church questioning this? And I think what I started to realize is there's a lot of people here that are very, very vulnerable. They're looking for family, they're looking for a sense of community. And I thought, this is a bit sad, actually. And I felt like this church is using people's insecurities to get what they want out of them. I mean, in terms of my brother, I guess my question for him was like, what are you getting out of this? What's in it for you? And there was one evening where I was talking to him and I was just saying to him, like, this church doesn't seem like fully up to scratch, and I feel like you're just blindly going into this. And he got really defensive. I said to him, I don't know if you're being genuine or not. I don't know if you're being like, just putting on a persona to impress people in this church, maybe. And yeah, he just got really defensive, and he said, this is me. This is me now. This is who this is, and then he just stormed out, really. And then,
This is
I,
me. That's so
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, this is me. And the thing is, in hindsight's 2020, and when I look back at it, I almost look at him and I think it was a phase in his life, and I think he was just trying to explore something new that piqued his interest for a bit, to be honest. And I remember he got into volunteering at the church as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because when he started volunteering, I remember he started questioning things as well. Like he started
Okay.
saying to the other people that were volunteering with him, like, why does this happen? And forgive me, I can't exactly say what he was questioning. It was so long ago, but I think it was just about how the church does things, and and I think there was a sort of almost a dictator-ish, I don't know if that's a word, but like,
Yeah. Yep.
vibe to the church. So it was kind of like, if you're in, you know, this is what you need to be doing, and this is how you're supposed to be, conducting yourself, and so on and so forth. And I think for him, he started questioning some of these things. And not that they were explicitly telling him, like, if you don't do this, you got to leave the church or whatever. But I think they were
Yeah.
starting to give him vibes of, you can't, you shouldn't really be questioning these things, sort of thing. And this is just how it is, sort of thing. And, by this point, he started listening to me a little bit more. I started showing him sort of YouTube videos, and there were certain videos that I was making. I made like 2 or 3 videos. You won't find them now because Hillsong
Okay.
took them down. But I made these videos of just criticizing sort of Hillsong and their
Right.
whole way of doing things. There was one video, there's this guy, and he was talking about how Hillsong helped him with his finances. And I think he based it on a Bible verse. And I remember thinking, this Bible verse doesn't actually match what he's saying. So I remember showing this to my brother Peter, and Peter sort of laughed at it and said, that's ridiculous. Like, that's not right. So I made this video, I was criticizing this particular video. And I remember after 5 days, I got like a copyright thing, like Hillsong.
Okay.
And that for me was kind of like, oh wow, like Hillsong are really, like, they've got a real juggernaut behind them to be, they've really got a legal team and stuff that monitoring people clearly that has any criticism of them. And copyright law says you can critique.
Yeah.
I was even baffled by that. I was thinking, hold on, this shouldn't,
So this was on
you know.
YouTube, yeah?
Yeah, this was on YouTube, and it was just a small little video. It wasn't anything special.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't like getting loads of views, but it clearly was enough for Hillsong to be like, we're not happy with that. We're going to take it down. And that was another reason why I was surprised, because it wasn't like I was getting like views from it at all. It
Mm.
was just really, really, really odd.
So we're
And
talking 2012-ish though.
yeah,
Yeah, well, there
around that
wasn't
time.
that much. Hey, there probably wasn't that much criticism out there, especially on YouTube and social media and some. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of what I was seeing in terms of criticism, the only thing I was coming across was like mainly your stuff. And I think there
Mhm.
were a few sort of like, I guess, Australian you know, use bits
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that on tube. And also, because I remember my brother Peter saying to me, Hillsong has these conferences as well
Mm.
that exist in all parts of the world, including London, because here I know they they may still has it, like a big conference in the O2. And I think they got one for like women, which was like Color Your World or something, which, so we started looking more into that sort of thing. And at this point, Peter's being a little bit more critical, a little bit more open-minded to like looking at the wider picture of Hillsong, I guess. And I also had read your book as well, and he didn't read it, but I was kind of like saying to him, like, look, I've read this book, this is what's in it. And he was just kind of like trying to play it off a little bit, but I think his mind was starting to tick like, okay, this is not what he thought it was, like in terms of it just being, standard church. You go there every Sunday and you worship and you go about your day sort of thing. And
Yep.
I think
Yep.
he started to realize that, and I don't really like to like throw this word about because it's quite, I don't know, I can't really
No,
sort
it
of,
is a cult. Mine's a second.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
no,
Is that what you were gonna
that's
say?
the word that I was going to use really, because, and the reason why I struggle using that word is because sometimes I feel like it's easy to use that word sometimes, but I couldn't really describe it as anything else.
What a bunch of fascinating conclusions to draw from as someone who has given such a reasonable and considered point of view. Sure, he's got his own biases, he did, but it's just, yeah, it's so interesting the paths that people take to arrive at all the same conclusions. Troy's a social worker, and I was a little bit stressed. Like, I don't know, what if he notices my skills and that? But it's just he has just such a grounded approach, and it's, yeah. I really appreciate your time joining us for what is quite an important conversation. A lot of people outside just don't get it, and yeah, it's a really lovely story, this one. Part 2 will be with you ASAP. I've got a bunch of other work going on, so I'm juggling, and yeah, I'm not the most coordinated juggler, but I'm juggling as fast as I can, and we will talk really soon. Please keep being kind to yourselves, be kind to the people around you, and just keep leaving Hillsong. That's all you got to do. Talk soon.